How often do you think about communication? Maybe when you get into an argument with your partner or your kids, or when you're sending off an email, you reread it to make sure you're communicating properly. But I'm talking about communication in a meta sense. Have you ever taken a step back and realized that communication is going on all the time, everywhere, between every person and all things? And some of the most important communication that you'll ever experience is actually the communication between you and you that's going on right in your head at any given moment. Seeing communication for what it is and starting to understand the way it shapes your relationships, your decisions, and even the opportunities that you attract is a key component in starting to build the life of your dreams. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers just like you who feel stuck bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. We live in the golden age of communication. Each of us carry with us at any given moment a device that communicates with any person, any place, anywhere on the entire earth. Even just 50 years ago, this would be complete science fiction. But beyond who we can communicate with, we also have to think about what is communicating with us. What is the media that we are taking in? What is going into you, and how does that affect the person that you become? If you're like most people, you might just assume that communication is simply about what you say out loud to others. And if that is you, don't worry. I was there as well. That's why today's conversation is so important for you to hear. My guest, Mario Wissa, is an expert in healthy communication. And he's here to show you why the communication that we take in from the world around us and the communication of the invisible dialogue inside of our own heads are all equally important, and how becoming aware of these various types of communication can completely shift the way you show up in the world for yourself and others. Mario is a communication researcher with over 15 years of experience. His work blends ancient wisdom with modern science, and he helps people transform their self-talk, set powerful mental boundaries, and communicate authentically with themselves and others. This episode is filled with real-world practical insights and wisdom, as well as ancient philosophical teachings that have stood the test of time. Blending both is what makes Mario so special, so please enjoy this conversation with Mario Wissa. What does it mean to be a good communicator?
To be a good communicator is to realize what communication is, which is a non stop, voluntary, and involuntary process of exchanging information, energy, and vibration. To be aware of the ripple effect that we cause with every thought and word that we speak and put out there. I appreciate that you say a good communicator. I have a strong urge to say a healthy communicator with awareness of ripple effect.
I like that distinction of a healthy communicator. Good and bad can imply a value judgment. Right? What is good? What is bad? Who knows? So, expanding on that, what is a healthy communicator to you? What does it mean to take all of those different aspects into account? What does that look like?
A healthy communicator is a person who express thoughts and experiences intentionally, mindfully, with compassion and open mindedness. So when I share my story with someone and someone agrees or disagrees with part of my stories, I have the ability to accept their perspective and their point of view on what I'm trying to say. So compassion is really important. Also, authentically sharing with no expectations, that's a very vulnerable territory, especially for men to be vulnerable. It really helps us to express ourselves in a healthy way, because eventually that leads into inviting these characters and personalities who express themselves authentically and in a healthy way into our lives. Basically, being a healthy communicator cultivates a magnet in our society to attract that. And maybe it's not needed to be said, but imagine the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's powerful, powerful visualization. The magnet, and as you said, the opposite to be repelling. So you mentioned that communication is a nonstop, both voluntary and involuntary exchange of information or feelings, whatever is exchange of everything, more or less. But being that it's voluntary and involuntary, some things go on without us even realizing. So, what are some of the more subtle ways that we connect, maybe with people or with others, that we often don't even realize are happening?
Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now I have to ask you for a huge favor. If you're getting value out of this episode so far, take 2 seconds and share it with a friend. I mean, right now, literally, hit the little share button and send it in a text to your roommate or your cousin or your mom or your brother or your sister. Seriously, spread the love. If you like what you're hearing, then that's the best way that you can show support for this show. Because maybe you're like Eliza Kay, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Or you're like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Don't you want to share this awesomeness with your friends and family? Don't be a gatekeeper. It only takes a second. It helps me grow and reach a new audience, and you seem like a genius friend who recommends new, awesome podcasts. We all win. All right, go send that text, and now let's get back to the show.
So let me start with this. It's really important when we think with ourselves that when we meet someone, either virtually or in person, we always think, oh, what am I going to share with this person? What will this person share with me? What will be the topic? And we think so much about communicating with words. We forget sometimes, which I'm not, some people realize it, some people forget it at often, that our existence is a communication. Right now, you are listening to me, and many other people will be listening to what we're discussing right now. Their existence actually communicating presence. Now, to start with that humble start, where do we go from here? Empowering to exist. Now, what I'm going to create next, is it empowering or disempowering for self and other people? Which in communication, I call it intra personal communication, how we converse with ourselves. And the other one is inter personal communication, 101.
I I really like the empowering aspect of this. Empowerment is such a powerful word to me.
Yes.
Whenever I'm a coach, and
Mm.
anytime I tell a client, or a client tells me that they feel empowered by something, I exercise and I felt empowered. I feel better
Yeah.
after I journal. I feel like that to me is the ultimate sign that things are going well. That to me is one of the highest levels that we seek as humans. So how do you see this as the starting point? So many people, I think, see empowerment as the end point, but
Hmm.
to your point, it's like empowering to exist is like that's like the base level. So how do we start there, and then where do we go from there?
A really key factor I have to bring up here, and this comes not only for my 15 plus years of research in communication, but also from yoga and meditation, now almost 13 years. Awareness. Awareness. I know we hear this word often, but how many times or how often we actually take time to reflect on that, to realize the conversation that's happening subconsciously, and cultivating a different conversation consciously is a life altering experience overnight. To be aware of what is being said versus what I choose to tell myself. This is almost, I actually realized this a few months ago. There is a big debate for thousands of years between um, predetermined destiny versus free will. The way I was able to conclude this is when you feel that things are predetermined in life, that means we are operating on a subconscious level. From childhood, from upbringing, we, most of us, aware that the first 2 years of our lives actually contributes to 90% of our future. Being aware of that and taking the other side where I cultivate my voice intentionally to empower me, like to have the ability to have something in the back of my head as I'm trying to get something done, and the back of my head is like, oh, you cannot do this, or this is too hard, or this is challenging, or you tried before, you did not succeed. We all deal with these voices. I intentionally, consciously, and deliberately I say, I can do this. I learned from the previous experience. I aim to continue trying. This is literally programming our own conscious mind. And that takes effort and awareness to be aware that you can actually do that. A lot of us are attached to the voice that comes in the back of my head and go like, oh, I'm this or that, and that's how it is. That's what my experiences were like, and that brought me here. Yet often we neglect that we have inner power to be aware and make a shift, even if it's 1 degree at a time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
totally couldn't agree more. I think that awareness is the first step for everything, for all change specifically. I say often, you can't change a problem that you don't know exists. So to become aware is the first step. It doesn't do anything to actually change the problem, but that is the first step along the cycle of change. So
Perfect.
or the way I teach this is, I would say, is the AEA loop, and that's awareness, education, action. So the first step is to
Mm,
become aware. I'm aware of the problem. I didn't even know that this was a thing. What now I'm aware that the wool has been pulled from over my eyes.
mm,
That doesn't make me any more capable of changing it. I just know that there's something that I might need to or want to change. Next up is education. I learn, okay, what can
mhm,
I actually do about this? What are the steps that I can take? But still, learning and awareness are only theoretical, and the last step is action, putting everything into play and taking the action. And then I call it a loop, because once you do those, then you end back up at awareness, where you're aware of some new thing that you have to handle, or you have to change, or something like that. So I, I'm right there with you. And one of the things, to your point, that I think holds us back, or just is the most important
mm,
factor in all human relationships, both with ourselves and with others, is that thing of self-talk, as you were saying, that
mhm.
inner dialogue that goes on in our head. So how do you teach people to start to take control of this? Because I think that when we talk about communication with others, we say interpersonal communication, different types of communication, we can all hear that and go, yeah, like I could be a little bit better with communicating with my partner, with my significant other, with my employees. But that is a once in a while thing. But the communication that goes on in our head with ourselves is all the time, 24/7. So, how do you start to get that under control when, as you said, it's kind of always just running subconsciously in the background?
So I right now I'm gonna go from like 0 to 60 in like 1 second, then we go back to zero again. Uh, the biggest part of what I'm doing is actually not necessarily to teach people anything they don't know yet, help them to realize the light and the knowledge within themselves where they can actually cultivate the path that they want. I'm not a guru, I'm not a teacher, I am not the professional in your life. Every single person, you know this so well, that every single one is the most expert in their own life. Who am I to live on this earth for 40 plus years and have my own experiences and approach your life and go like, hey, that's how these things work, this is healthy, that's how you're supposed to? No, no. I encourage people to discover their own path, as we mentioned. And now going back to zero, from 0 to 60, I said back to zero. As you mentioned, awareness is extremely vital point to start with. consciousness and intentionality of what is the next step, what would be like for me, and what impact it would have on other people. Third, and really important, to genuinely show up, to be authentic about who you are, how you feel, what's going on with you. The magical part about this is that when we show up authentically, wherever we go, whatever we do, we actually receive authentic experience from the universe. If we show up with a face or a mask on, or I'm supposed to pretend, well, guess what? That's where I'm attracting. People who are pretending, people who are just putting a mask on, people who might have like a subtle intentions that you're not aware of. So being aware, showing up authentically are very, very crucial. What do you think of that, Paul?
I would tend to agree. I definitely would tend to agree. I think that the authenticity piece is so important, but also challenging. As you mentioned earlier when we were first speaking, you said there's a level of vulnerability and
Yeah.
releasing expectations. So when I think about authenticity, I think that this links back to that, where how can I be more authentic in a world where everything is built on the expectation of the way things need to be, either, again, as you said, as a man, as a father, as a brother. We have all of these things that we are feel that we are supposed to live up to. So how do I know what is even authentically me versus what has been programmed into me?
The concept of authenticity and being real self as how we're supposed to be as an individual, to be very frank, it's one of the simplest things to do, to practice, yet is the most challenging in this society that we live in. And I'm speaking from a 1,000 mile point of view high between US, Asia, Africa, Europe. Human is human, simply put. The moment we actually become aware of our authentic self, first we struggle with some time to kind of really understand and comprehend what that really means. And we do have the option to continue with that being authentic self with what we know and we don't know what our emotions are. And the other option is like keep operating on autopilot, like I have been before for so many years. If we turn on the switch on to be authentic, truly it starts with self, and everything else happens after that in terms of relationship, career, connection, wise, wealth wise, whatever is going to follow up with that. There is no exact formula to go like that is how you achieve your authentic self. ABC 1, 2, 3. That's not how it works. Being authentic self is very different for each and every single person. Hence, I don't go, you know what the word guru means? You familiar with the word guru? So it's a Sanskrit word, gu and ru. Gu, it really means darkness. And ru, it's someone who sheds light on darkness. It's not someone who tells you how you're supposed to live life, but they're just pointing a few hints and ideas on some dark ideas that you have, maybe we can expand on. So being aware, being open, and realize that the path you are taking is one and only in this universe. Wow. For me, at least.
I love that, and I love that breakdown of the word guru. It's a word I think I gets thrown around a lot, but I've never actually heard the actual definition, so I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
so I like that. All right, we've been kind of going this from the inside out, where we start with the awareness, the acceptance, and all these different things, being intentional, being mindful, and how that affects, as you said, ourselves, but then also our relationships, our wealth,
Yep.
everything else, right?
Yes,
Go
sir.
echoes out from that. I'm
Mhm.
curious how you see the reverse. How is it that communication with others can affect our own personal self growth?
Please elaborate on that. I just want to make sure. What do you mean by that?
So how can we see that becoming a better communicator,
Mm-hmm.
right? Becoming a
Mm-hmm.
better communicator with others,
Mm-hmm.
improving these skills, whether you call them soft skills or hard skills around communication,
Mm-hmm.
can actually help us personally grow, even though we're focusing on our
Mm.
interactions with other people.
Okay, there are two parts to answer this. First, I promise you, it's not my intention, but it just happened to be. My first book title is Empowering Communication Unleashed. The subtitle that I want to bring up is The Most Powerful Voice You Will Ever Hear Is Your Own. Every time I say this, the most powerful voice you will ever hear is your own. If I say two, three times, the most powerful voice you will ever hear is your own, you are nodding up and down. 100% of people do the same thing. We are aware of that, Paul. What do we do with that? Now, that's a different journey. The second part is the influence that we have from the outside is merely, if we are aware, is merely spectators. We can actually choose to let these experiences in or not. Imagine I am walking down the street going to the light rail station or something, or and someone out of nowhere and go like, "Hey, you're stupid." Just someone calls me down in the street, and I can just look at them and like smile and just like walk away. I can like jump them and like fight them, or I can like go like, "Ha, that's funny," or I can not just not pay any attention and keep moving forward. When we become aware, we realize that we have the option for two separate actions: to respond or to react. Most of us are reactionary when it comes to the outside world, relationships, family, conversations. For us to realize that we have the option to respond, that makes us responsible and accountable. So when I was walking down the street and that guy who says, "Ah, you're stupid," I decide to respond to ignore because it's not that important to me. Someone else might think this is important and they go and fight the person. The mere difference is the mindset. So, being aware of the mindset and how we prime ourselves, which really starts at the beginning of the day. If we start early in the morning and we have a good relationship with ourselves and we cultivate self compassion, as we're going throughout the day, if people say things or do things that might makes us doubt ourselves, we are standing on a solid ground. I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, and the influence that happens around me, I get to choose whether it impacts me or not. Hence, the following word, which is probably a whole, we can have a whole session on that: boundaries. Mental boundaries is crucial.
Yeah, expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by mental boundaries?
Mental boundaries is the ability to actually realize that we have the ability to set mental boundaries. Also, this is not physical boundaries. It's not like, oh, you cannot touch me, you cannot go here, you cannot do this. This is mental boundaries. It means, okay, check this out. What do we call this part in our skull? We call it temple. We know what the word temple mean. It's like a holy place. So we treat this mind and brain, they're not the same thing, but they treat the brain as a holy place, as a temple. And we say boundaries to, like, if you have a holy place, would you let someone walk in the holy place with a dirty shoes? Probably not. I mean, you get to choose if you let them, that's fine. But the reason why we call this a holy space is just we appreciate it. So we filter what information, ideas, and come our way. Discernment. Once we cultivate this ability to discern, really, our life can change in a very short period of time. Mental boundaries.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Discernment is such a powerful word. I think that discernment is the superpower of the modern age. In a
Hmm.
world with infinite information, where we have infinite resources at any given time, you can go on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Google, Facebook, whatever, and get a million different voices telling you a million different things. And somehow they're all saying the exact opposite thing. And everyone is
Hmm.
supposed to be right and
Yes.
everyone is an expert.
Yes.
Being
Yes.
able
Yes.
to discern, who do I even listen to? Is Mario, he's not a guru, but why should I listen to him over someone else? There's no right answer to that. We have to all be able to decide that for ourselves. And that is a meta skill that I think helps
Hmm.
become the person that we want to become, helps us build towards what we want to build. But in that, I just said there's all these different inputs. We have a million things flying at us at all any given time. There's always going to be things that get in the way of the communication that we're trying to have with others or others are trying to have with us. So what are some of the common barriers or things that get in the way of communication that you've seen?
There are actually quite few, honestly. Over 15 years of research, there's actually a good dozen for the time being, since we're being spontaneous about this. Two things. One, ignorance. Two, we think we know. Ignorance is something that I noticed where we feel like I know enough to draw a conclusion and I feel like I have enough information, yet I don't. What does that mean? It means to stay open minded and keep listening, because when we listen, we learn. And when we learn, we earn other people's trust with time. I think everything I'm saying sounds very familiar to you, so I love it.
I really love what you said there about, you said when we listen, we earn the right, or we earn, but you saw I was nodding my head as you were saying that, because I thought you were just going to say when we listen we earn, because I connect everything. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking about this not just from a communication or interpersonal lens, but this is something that I teach people in the business world. I work
Yes.
in gyms and I help personal trainers
Mhm.
learn how to sell and learn how to become more successful in their careers. And that's one of the things that I teach is like the best thing you can do if you want to make a sale, if you want to have a successful date.
To
You're talking about
listen. Yeah.
relationships, whatever. It's like the more you listen, the more you earn people's respect, the more you earn people's value. But you also literally, the more money you earn. The people who are the best salesmen or salespeople are the best listeners. So
Listeners.
there's a direct
100%.
correlation there that I really love you bringing that up. So you said ignorance and feeling like I already know the answers are the two
Yes.
biggest impediments.
Thank you. That's what I want to touch on, which basically translates into ego. We think we know. And from my personal experience, I can tell you that the more I learn in this universe, the less I know. So I have like a mental filter every time I say, when there's a conversation, I say, I know. And I just listen to myself. I go like, do you really know? So there's this mental illusion that we know enough. The matter of fact and the truth is we really know less than 0.0001% of what is really happening. Our eyes do not even see everything that's happening, the different light and different vibration. It would be wonderful to remember that as we are creating our path, we are also spectators to an amazing journey that's happening. It's not just about one person, it's a collective experience. This actually brings us closer together. And this is something that we need right now more than ever. Our mind tends to, if we're not aware, divides us like right or left or up and down, black and white, wrong or right. Yet, when we take time to sit with our mind, we realize this connection and wholeness, and it really helps us to connect with others as human beings. It's not what I want from you, what you want from me, but another human being having their own temporary experience on this planet. I hope that makes sense.
Totally, it does. I appreciate that a lot, and I definitely agree. I love that, and it's such a powerful
Hmm,
reframe or even cue.
hmm.
I just wrote this down for myself too. It's like when I get that feeling of I already know this, not only should that be that should set off an alarm in my head to not only should I not know this, I need to listen more intently because the very fact that I'm trying to cut someone off or in my head already preemptively answer the question tells me like hold on a second, I need to double down on my efforts to listen and be open to bringing in that new information because when I'm not doing so, I'm setting myself up for failure and I'm cutting off the all the possible growth that could happen from that conversation.
I love that you bring this up, and I have a strong urge to share this with you and our listeners. A really quick, Paul, have you been to India yet, or you haven't had the chance? Asia? No.
No,
Okay.
not yet.
So I spent about a year and a half in India. I stayed in ashrams. I taught English to monks, Hindu monks, Buddhist monks, Tibetan monks, and there was a one guru that was in McLeod in the Himalaya. His title was I don't know guru. Basically, whatever question you ask him, he tells you I don't know. Do you think he really does not know? His own purpose, life mission to tell you that even if he asks him a question and he knows the answer, he still tells you he does not know, as a reminder that no matter how much we know, we still don't know. Does that make sense to you? For me, that's like a big wow.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly it. The most knowledgeable people know how little they know, and usually
Mm,
it's the opposite for the people who know the least think they know the most. So again, it should just be a mental alarm almost that when you catch yourself thinking, "Oh, I already know this," it's like, well, again, if the if the guru doesn't know anything, then
mm.
why do I think that I know everything? So I think that's a great point for again for myself, not, and for listeners, for anyone who wants to take something away from that. So Mario, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
Oh my goodness. I love that you bring this up because I was just reflecting on your podcast title, Change Made Easy. Um, I have to take a second and slow things down, honestly, from my heart. The change that I want to see in the world would be to. This is based on my research and so many experiences. Some of it might be so simple it would make sense, yet for some people really need to savor on that. Um, to realize that we actually exist. I'm not kidding you. Some people have their jobs and careers and making money and spending money and creating family, and you ask them, hey, how about yourself? Do you realize that you exist? I'm like, no, I exist for others. It's very crucial to realize that you exist for yourself. I think I have so many other messages, but I'm going to keep it simple at that. To realize that you exist and your existence is profound. It's not your career, it's not your job, it's not your money, it's your thoughts, words, and actions that actually shape the world. You exist. So am I. Existing consciously and intentionally can be really liberating to a lot of us. Instead of being triggered of what's happening, we become masters of what triggers us. That's empowering.
Beautifully said, and I couldn't agree more. My last question for you, Mario. If you had one action step that listeners can take right now, today, as soon as this episode ends, as soon as they take their headphones out, to start making whatever change they're trying to make in their life just a little bit easier, what would it be?
This one step is really important for me, and I do it pretty much every morning. And I have a strong urge to share this with them. Many people, well, some people will be receptive, some may not be. The ability to set a timer on your phone or a clock or alarm for like 30 minutes and go in your bedroom or some kind of space and close the door and maybe sit there with a pen and paper and just think with yourself with no social media, no distraction. This the the true fact is our brain thinks thousands of times faster than we think. So if we have conversation with someone going back and forth, that takes time. When we have a conversation with ourselves, that can be quick. So the key factor is action to take now is have a conversation with self for at least 30 minutes with no distraction. I, c- I don't do promises, yet I guarantee you the next day will not be as you expect it to be once you connect with your deeper self.
Before you go, I just have to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed or got value from this episode at all, then take a moment and leave a rating and review in the podcast app that you're listening or watching on. If you like the show and you want me to continue to create more episodes and be able to get awesome guests that will help make changing your life easier, then this is the best way you can show support. You can leave a 5-star review on iTunes like Eliza K, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Thank you, Eliza. Or you can be like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Thank you, Dalton. And thank you to all of the over 100 people who have taken the time to rate and review this show 5 stars on iTunes, or the dozens who have left 5-star reviews on Spotify. It only takes a minute, and it helps me grow, it helps me reach a new audience, and it lets me know that this is helping someone, which just feels good. All you have to do is go to the show page of whatever app you're listening to and hit the little 5 stars. Or go to the comments section on YouTube and boom, that's it. And if you really want to show love, take a screenshot when you do it and tag me in your stories on social media at Change Made Easy, and I'll shout you out in an upcoming episode. All right, go leave that rating, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday with new episodes of Change Made Easy.